Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thing on the agenda is the minutes of our last meeting.
Didn't see anything exciting.
He's not here.
Nope, I don't see him.
So, Chris made a motion.
Nope, not yet. I make a motion, we approve the minutes of June 14th, 2023.
Second?
The motion by Chris, second by Mark to approve the minutes of June 14th. All those in favor? Thank you. Next are department reports and.
I'll go first.
Good. First and last.
Good evening. I'm gonna harp on this every meeting. Unity night out. August 1st, 1800, the PD parking lot. Everyone's invited. Hamburgs and hot dogs this year. We got a selection. We're moving up in the world. Bring your family, bring your friends. Still getting really good reviews from the street signs, speed signs we're putting out. We did have one fail. A couple days ago, we moved it from Blue Road over to onto Back Street. Dana's working with the vendor trying to get that back up and running. We're down to one right now in front of the PD. So, like I said, we've been getting real good feedback on that. Last evening, Monmouth and Winthrop held a joint meeting in this room right here with joint training for water safety. We went out in the back, practiced throwing ropes and bags and water rings. Training together has been a real big plus, real positive. Everybody seems to be enjoying the camaraderie and working out well. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Sergeant Westling is going to be sworn in as the new lieutenant for the Monmouth Police Department. Make you guys aware in case you wanted to attend. He'll be assisting me with some administrative functions now that I'm doing both jobs. Some of that's going to trickle down for them, so I need an administrator on this side of the house to help me out. Month of June to date, 389 complaints handled, 4 arrests. I just want to, the very first one, we had an assault on an officer, he had a criminal threatening and bail violation. We responded on the Ridge Road for a subject dancing naked in the road with loud music playing. Person ended up being on bail conditions. We also arrived, he was approached and with a female who had a wood baseball bat that had 7-inch spikes coming out the end of it. The end of that bat was like a dozen spikes sticking out this far. And he showed great restraint. She cornered him against the car, was threatening him with him. And he showed great restraint. We ended up arresting her without incident. I just wanted to it's stuff we're dealing with now. It's getting crazy out there. I just wanted to say that he did an excellent job in that situation. It's another arrest for a bail violation, arrest for an OUI, and we had an arrest for eluding high-speed chase that happened, started in Winthrop, and we ended up picking it up, setting up a roadblock. They passed the roadblock, so we ended up guiding the individual for 2 felonies and several misdemeanors. I also included in here, we haven't seen these for a while, but month to date. So the day, the number of complaints by day, the number of complaints by hour, and you can see, month to date for June, we're up to 389 complaints as of 4:30 this afternoon, so. Things are picking up. Even though summer doesn't look like it's here, it is here. And on the last page, you'll see the, year to date statistics, 3,654 complaints handled. And it shows the hour and the day breakdown on that. And I won't bore you with those details that are there in front of you to look at, that you'll enjoy. Any questions?
We own those signs, the speed limit,
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
So we just take them out now and then and they stay in the garage.
In the winter time, they stay out in back of the garage.
Yep.
We used to keep them at the town garage, but there's no room up there for them anymore. So we take the electronic part off, those get stored in the garage and the trailer part. It's stored out back in the PD.
The one that's broken is gonna be fixed.
We're hoping that we can fix it. Without having to send it back. Dana, like I said, Dana's been in contact with the vendor and he has a electrician that's gonna be from the company calling him back to troubleshoot it. So what happened between Blue Road and Back Street? Those trailers aren't designed for that particular sign. That sign is white, so you hit a bump with that and it jars it. And I think something came loose inside and they just gotta figure out what it is. Fair.
Just to admit it, Chief and Dana made me look like I was really on top of things because I think Chris on a Wednesday night meeting said something about it. I emailed him on Thursday and he said the car's over there getting a hitch on it or something right now and they were out that afternoon.
Yeah.
So I just like to say that he was already on top of it. I will not take credit for that, but it looked like I would, I made him get it done in two.
Wished I wiggled my nose and it happened.
But it worked out perfect. That next day I came to work and that thing was sitting out on Main Street and I was like, look at that. I didn't even get what he. Yeah.
So the incidents at the beach. So. Any follow-up or continuing issues at the beach?
I believe. We're still missing the bike rack. It was recovered, and then a couple nights later. It disappeared again along with the lifeguard seat that they pulled up over the post so they could get it a lock out. They floated it again. So I think the bike rack is probably out there somewhere. It just hasn't been found yet.
Has more stuff happened in town or just that?
Just that.
They must have a vote to drag it out or.
No, they're just walking it out. Throwing it in the other side of the netting.
But there is security down there now. Right, a camera.
I'm not sure if that is set up yet.
I've been told that they're going to do it. I don't know for sure they are.
Oh. Whose decision is it?
Lisa asked if she could put cameras up down there. And I, like I mentioned to you guys in your little note. I allowed that to happen. I told her I did not want them on during the day while they were kids down there. I didn't want to get into that. So the way that it's going to work right now is when they leave for the day, they'll be turned on, and when they show up in the morning, they will turn them off. And I wanted to give you all the opportunity tonight, if you have an objection to me letting them go ahead with that, I'd like to know that now before they do it. But that's the way it's been told, is that you're welcome to put cameras down. It's gonna be a local closed circuit. It's gonna be on one thing. It's not gonna be on the internet or anything. But I did make it clear that I do not want those running during the day while there are kids down at the beach. So if there's any, if you object to that, let me know now and I can put a stop to it, but I let them move forward because we just need some information so the police can figure out, whether it's kids or adults or whether there's cars or anything they can use to try to figure out who's doing this, night after night. It was,
Will there be signs? Under.
That is up to you. I did not contemplate that, so.
I saw that they used them in Livermore to catch the kids that had spray painted the ballparks there, so. What's the usual recommendation or that you're comfortable with?
I'm comfortable with, I'm not a big proponent to having cameras invading everybody's privacy.
Yeah,
But when you have events like this that keep reoccurring, I concur 100% with him. Evening hours, overnight hours, when there's no one around during the day. I have a problem with that.
and what about signage? Do you think that's,
Necessary?
necessary or
If you want someone
suggested?
stealing your cameras,
Well, exactly.
now that they know, I mean,
Oh, I
they'll
know.
be looking for.
Well, yeah. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a good idea, especially to protect what's there. So, a lot of things could get damaged down there between so.
You think,
Pavilion.
My concern is them starting on the new playground.
Exactly, the pavilion, the playground,
you think the signs will cause them to go search for them or?
Oh, yeah, especially if what they're using is trail cameras, they'll get stolen.
Yeah.
There's not permanently mounted cameras that I'm gonna walk off of.
I don't think anyone has an expectation of privacy there. I mean, you're
Public
in a
space.
public
Yeah.
place and.
yeah.
You want me to read?
Yes,
Dan?
please.
This is, Dan Roy. Sorry.
Before we move on, can we, I don't know, put a limit to how long this might go on, just till we revisit it, just so that we're not giving a carte blanche forever type of surveillance thing of the park down there, that I think after a certain period of time, if we've got some suspects that have been dealt with, then perhaps we don't need to do that. And we can go back to the status quo for the last 40 years.
Doing away with the surveillance.
Yeah, well, eventually, sure, there's no problem. I don't think we ought to be surveilling a public place if we get to a point where there's no problem. And so, or maybe it's just something that we check in on in a month and say, do we still need these? I'm kind of uncomfortable putting surveillance on a public place. I understand we need to protect the town assets. And having been a teenager, I understand that sometimes people are going to do stupid things. And need to be put on a short leash.
You never go to Boston or London or whether you're constantly on CCTV.
Oh, of course. No, I understand that's probably good for them, sure. But this is, this is Monmouth, Maine.
But how do you know you have a problem until after the problem has occurred,
Well,
right?
True,
But I mean, during the winter time, there's not been a history of that sort of thing, but, during this time that, kids are, or
Kids.
and
what's that?
they've got some freedom. They've
Yeah,
got some freedom, probably
exactly.
too much freedom.
So, during the summer, I think it's,
Sure.
not a bad idea, and then revisit it come fall and decide whether it's necessary at that time when we pack up the plantation down there, so.
That makes sense to me.
Mhm.
And it's a good thing we brought those tables in when we did
Yeah,
at our last meeting.
Do we know who they belong to?
Yes, they belong to, they were used for Pat's ceremony out here. They belong to the pet shop.
right. Oh, the tent shop, yeah,
Yeah.
so,
That's why I never could figure out, because they just must have just disappeared after they were done. After you
Yeah.
brought them in, they must, because they have codes to get in, so
Yeah.
the rec
I-
people do.
Well, I just didn't feel comfortable leaving stuff outside.
Right.
I mean, what?
Yeah, I didn't, I never figured out what happened to them. They just disappeared.
Yeah,
That's, it's good to know.
It's not a lot of fun carrying a table off, though.
no,
They probably wouldn't.
but you never know. So
Was it those plastic ones that might have floated?
it was essentially, you
Oh,
know,
was it? Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
Ready for me to? This is from Dan Roy, the fire chief. Beach party preparations are winding down. Event is almost here. Saturday, July 8th, with cardboard canoe race kicking off things at 3:30 PM. Food vendors, bounce house, LA Harley band, and fireworks. Cocknowagon Lake at 9:30 PM. Fire department will be hosting our second annual golf scramble fundraiser at the Meadows in Litchfield on August 11th. All proceeds to benefit the 9/11 Memorial and Firehouse Museum. If anyone's interested in sponsoring a hole or wants to play, contact Dan Roy at 446-7030. Update on the museum property. We should have nonprofit entity by next week and plan to do purchase sale agreement within the next couple of weeks. Thanks, Dan. We are in office stuff tomorrow. We are closing at noon for a year-end financial rollover. Be working with Mark on that. We don't anticipate a lot of problems. This is our first year with him doing it. In the future, we may not need this much time. In the past, we needed it because our whole budgetary system was in Trio on our systems. It's not anymore. So we don't have as much risk, but we want to get 1 year kind of without that to make sure there isn't a problem, especially with the fact that our last day is on Thursday. Trio usually ramps up. Right, it would be for Friday because knowing the weekend, so they have a lot of staff there on Friday, but tomorrow they might not. So we just hate to have people in the town office standing there trying to register their cars while our computer system is just, spinning, trying to save all the data. So we'll close tomorrow at noon. The auditor, as I said, is available, I think, what is it, July 20? Is that what it is? I'm just trying, yep, July 26th, he'll be either here at the meeting or he'll be on Zoom, one or the other, but he'll be available to you for that audit. We've already, they've already engaged Mark and I for the last year's audit. So hopefully we'll get that one on time this year. So as we're moving into the budget schedule, you'll know exactly what is in the fund balance. We won't be kind of guessing like we had to do last year. And then after that, hopefully we'll be on a good schedule. It should be very easy now that Mark is doing it because he's an auditor himself. So it's nothing for him to put this stuff together. I think that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions. Was there anything, Mark, that we talked about today then? No, okay. Nope. I think that's it. Oh, and I put the audit, the responses to the revaluation RFP. There's a few copies there. If you want to read it. John and I interviewed both of those firms on Monday. They're both very reputable, so whichever way we go, we're in good hands, and we will bring a recommendation to you probably for your next meeting for you to act upon if you so choose. But the bids came in very reasonable and on the timeline that we asked. The RFP asked for April 1, 2025 or negotiated. Don and I were both stunned that they both could meet that. They both said they could do it in that timeline, and the prices were much better than we expected. So we did pretty good on that.
Just for the public record, can you let us know what each price is?
Yep. So KRT bid $200,000 even to do all of it and the personal property. Vision is not going to do the personal property, and they bidded $219,000. So we would have to add a supplementary person to do the personal property. We don't have a lot in this town, so I wouldn't expect it to be more than like $10,000 or $12,000 additional on top of the Vision. Vision is the company we've had for 20 years, but KRT is very, the KRT principals used to work at Vision, so they know how to use Vision, and we've also requested that they give us a proposal to switch our system away from Vision to a Patriot, which is another mass appraisal system, which at the moment is only used in Auburn, but in recent times, many of the bigger towns have, or several have, I don't want to say many, several have switched over. Patriots is becoming more common in Maine. You know, you don't want to be the only one in Maine that's using it, but like Cape Elizabeth, Oxford, a few other towns have adopted that. So we asked them to look into that too, because right now, when we were doing the whole IT issue, we're on Vision 6.5, which is a, if you will, it's a standard software on a server system. They're at Vision 8 now, which is more of a web-based. So we have to use an old computer operating in an obsolete Windows environment to make 6.5 work. So it's a security risk for the town office. Vision 8's been around a few years, but it's kind of developed for Massachusetts, and it has some interesting issues dealing with how it deals with personal property. So there's some issues for each side to kind of balance on what everybody's used to and what we're going to use in the future. So Don and I are having those conversations, and we'll bring a full recommendation to you about why all of those once we have a time, an opportunity to talk about it more. Monday, we like I said, Monday afternoon we interviewed, but she'll be back next week and we'll talk more.
Is Patriot widely used other than other states?
It's widely used in Massachusetts. Yeah, it's a Massachusetts-based mass appraisal company. So they are a company that also does revals in Massachusetts. They won't come up here because the laws are just different, and certain firms will only go so far because they're just not comfortable going into other states. But they do revaluations in Massachusetts, and they're widely used in Massachusetts for their towns.
What is it we're currently paying subscription cost wise?
Oh, the Vision. I should have that off my head. I don't know. I wouldn't dare to say, but it's somewhere between 10 and 20,000, I would say.
So 5 figures.
Yeah, something like that.
Before we move on from the town manager, can you tell us about the cost increases that you and I discussed a little bit on our consortium membership, the MWEC?
Oh, so the tipping fees, we got noticed last week or the week before. I can't remember. I think it might have been early last week or late the week before that. Our tipping fees have basically doubled. They've gone from 40 to 85, I think. We do not have the money in the budget that was just approved to pay for that. So when we get our invoices in July, Dan and I have already had a conversation that we'll be bringing this problem to you to figure out how to deal with it, because we don't have enough money to operate the transfer station and its current operations for the next year with those fee increases. It's going to completely blow up the transfer station budget. We cannot keep disposing of things in the way that we've been doing it with the money that we have. And because we just had the vote, right? We can't fix it in this year. So if we want the current standard to continue, that'll be a next year budget question, and it will be, how much is everybody willing to tolerate? But this year we're going to have we're going to have a problem that we're going to have to address, and whether it's reducing hours, not taking certain items anymore. There's going to be a choice that's going to have to be made, and we'll be bringing that to you once we have a better picture of what that's going to look like. We have an idea, but it's hard to tell with kind of the different categories. We want to see kind of what that July bill looks like, and then when we see that, we'll make our guesstimates for you all, and we'll have to come to you with some hard choices to make.
This increase from MWEC, it's not atypical for disposal costs in general, correct?
No, in my opinion, and in the opinion of others that are on the legislative policy committee at MMA, this state has no plan to deal with municipal solid waste, none whatsoever. They've done nothing for probably 2 decades to address it, and it's coming to a head. There's no place to put anything. When the recycling market collapsed, so like EcoMaine, right, used to take all of this recycling, which we've all been trained to, to put your to do the right thing, as we've been told, since I've been told as a little kid, everybody's been trained now for a while. What all these facilities, it's not, I don't want to pick on EcoMaine, it's not just them, it's all of the recycling facilities are diverting almost all of what you're recycling into the landfills. It has no market value at all. They don't want it. There's no use for it. So they're literally diverting all this stuff. So at all costs, so the revenues that would have been made by these entities, like I'm more familiar with EcoMaine because I was on the board of directors for a number of years. The revenues that were generated off the recycling offset the cost of getting rid of the trash. Well, now there's no revenue in recycling. So now it's all trash. So they're operating these facilities and they just divert it. So like when you send, I hate to discourage a lot of people, but when you send a lot of recycling to any of these facilities, they have it in their contracts that they can divert it if it's not worth anything. And that's what they do. It ships to the facility. They don't want it. They divert it and it goes up to Juniper Ridge up in Old Town or whatever. They dump it in the ground. Like there's no use for it. So what's happening is the trash is becoming more and more expensive because those things that used to generate revenue or were free are no longer free. And you don't know it until they hit it, until they dump it. So that's kind of the problem. And it's not just the Maine problem, it's an everywhere problem, but Maine doesn't have a solution to any of it, right? Like we just haven't done anything. So
Is Mass still shipping their stuff up here?
yes. So if you happen to be like, when I was at KV Cog yesterday, I was talking to Richard LaBelle, who's the manager in Norridgewock, and they run a Casella waste facility. I think it's Casella. They run a waste facility in Norridgewock, and they're raking in the money because they have to pay the municipality so much for every ton that gets dumped there. So because everything is getting diverted out of recycling and dumped into the ground, the town has more money than it knows what to do with. But at the same time, no one's doing the right thing with all of this material, right? You're just dumping it in the ground. So it's a mess. The whole system is a mess. That is just kind of me lecturing you. The real problem is just that it's going to cost a lot of money and we don't have it. So we're going to have to come to you and say, what do you want to do?
And why they don't use it to generate electricity anymore?
They do. But there's also problems in that market right now too, because of subsidies for certain types of power versus others. I don't want to keep talking about, but it is an issue everywhere.
But the electric market is way up, so you'd think they'd be getting.
It is, but the subsidies and everything are on the renewable power, they don't consider trash burning to be in the top echelon of the reusable scale. So it's considered just like burning basically coal or gasoline or whatever. It's not favored on the open market. Yes.
Are we under contract with Wales for what they contribute? Are we gonna be able to go to them and say fees have doubled? So
Yeah, our sort of calculation with them is based on like population, and there's some cost formula in there, and I have to look into whether there's an after the fact, because they're going to be in the same problem as us, right? They have a town meeting, they don't have a council, so they can't change. So they've already approved their budget. We already gave them a number to estimate what their cost was for the year. So even if we went to them, they don't have any ability to give us any more, right? So we're kind of stuck. So we just have to figure out what it is that is going to be the savings. But I'm not prepared to give you any recommendations because I don't know. But when I do have that information, I'll certainly bring it along. It'll be the next meeting or the one after that. One or the other.
Have you considered, I mean, I know at one point you were discussing the possibility of finding a way to weigh construction debris so that we're not subsidizing the disposal of construction debris, right? We're not accepting it for free, essentially.
Right.
And have you considered the possibility of, rather than having to weigh it, that instead we charge by volume?
I have all kinds of sort of options that can be presented to you. They all kind of would probably require an ordinance change. I'm not sure exactly what we can do without an ordinance versus with an ordinance, but you're right, like it's, there's a disadvantage to the way that we don't have a formal scale, if you will. If you go to, you go to Augusta or Winthrop or something, they have a scale, so they are getting charged for what you put in there. Here, our fees are wholly inadequate for what it actually costs to dispose of anything, so. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Towns choose how to deal with this stuff, but here, clearly the taxpayers are subsidizing people that are throwing heavy stuff into the demo bin. Tires are being subsidized by tax. So if you're the person that throws away, one bag of trash a week, you're feeling it on your tax rate versus someone that's bringing, 2 pickup truckloads worth of stuff every week because you've either got a lot of kids or you're clearing out trees or whatever. So that's just kind of how it works. There's lots of options about how we try to either even that out or don't take things. I mean, there's always options to tell people that, we just don't take it. You have to get a private hauler to get rid of X, Y, Z, or get somewhere else, like that. But those are certainly policy decisions that you all are going to be faced with pretty soon.
And we talked about that stuff ad nauseum when we were having the sticker discussion.
Right,
So
exactly.
where we needed to go with fees and fees for certain things or fees in general.
Right.
And there's been, numerous stories in the newspaper from a lot of other towns about changing their fee structure, so.
Yeah, this is not unique to us.
No.
It's just that we've just kind of gotten, we're getting slapped in the face right
Yeah.
now, so it's gonna be, that's all.
It's a select board reports. I've got just one thing. I got some calls from the Fair Association. I was kind of hoping Dan was gonna be here. He had an issue with the outflow traffic from the fair going in front of the building. Thought it was a safety concern for the employees in and out of the public works garage, truck traffic. And he thought it would be best to block that area off and divert the traffic around the sand pile to exit. Which the Fair Association saw as a big problem because it's kind of a single lane going around the sand pile, and you've got cattle trailers coming in, and now you've got people meeting on the backside of the sand pile, and it wasn't really gonna work for them. And then it became a big issue of getting the stuff moved and whether it was gonna get moved, and it got moved. And I suggested to Dan that would probably be a conversation that we should have a month after the fair rather than 3 days before the fair. And I don't know that they had any problems, but it's probably something that's gonna come up, I suspect. There was a lot of unhappy people because the stuff was in the way right up until Tuesday, late morning. And it was impeding the traffic for people setting up and going around that way. And I had a conversation with him and I want to hear your concerns, and we talked for 20 minutes or more, and it's like, I understand what your concerns are, but it's like, we should have that conversation with groups of people and come up with a resolution moving forward, rather than just making the set decision and creating a bunch of upset people. We don't need upset people. It doesn't look good for any of us, so we probably will have that conversation at some point or some groups of people will have that conversation.
Well, you know, wearing our hats for Tungsten Park, you know, that's something that when we have a users meeting for Tungsten Hall, but it's probably important to have a user meeting for Tungsten Park and to have the discussion between the fair, the public works, and have like a debriefing after the fair, what worked, what didn't work, what we need to do for next year, and make a plan and come up with that plan so that everybody's sitting down at the table and having a face-to-face, not at the last minute, 2 days before the fair opens and nobody's happy. Because, you know, we don't want to go down that route. We want the fair to be a success because it's important for the town and it's important for the fair and
We want a safe working environment for the public works.
For the
crew.
public works crew. So if we have to have a user group meeting for Tungsten Park, which should probably be, you know, also have the snowmobile club there because they use Tungsten Park, and part of that make sure that all the players are there. I think that's important.
This is the first year that we haven't had somebody from the fair,
Come to
association come.
the user group,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. Paul or, Pogo has
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that kind of stuff with.
Yeah, but it's never involved public works, so, yeah, I think that, yeah, I think,
It's
you
never,
know,
never,
And if we decide at some point to put up a sand salt shed, it may become more of an issue.
Yeah.
If there's less footprint there to
to move things.
move vehicles through.
Yeah.
Depending where that gets located and.
Yeah. So I think that's important to maybe have a debrief with the players, so I think that would be good.
we could have them come to or maybe our August, trustees meeting. If
Yeah.
We have an August, hopefully. maybe
Yeah.
we should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any other select board?
Does this board have authority to issue a proclamation? And I'm wondering if we should recognize the Monmouth Academy boys state champion. Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Sure.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The Monmouth Academy boys baseball team won this Class
Class
C state championship. So, yeah, that was exciting.
Maybe an English major could write the thing.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of things. I heard an update on from the legislature on the Pickers bill, which is the proposal to insulate the town from any liability if we allow pickers at the transfer station. And apparently it's passed the House of Representatives and has moved to the Senate, and I'll let you know where that goes. How it's going.
I'm running short.
Yeah.
Well, they're all, it's, they're jamming through all these things, and then of course we'll have to wait 10 days to see what the governor says about the idea.
So they've turned into Congress because they're going to take a recess until after the 4th of July. They're coming back. Now they're taking vacations now. Oh, I don't know when they're going to actually leave forever, but. Huh?
August.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I was, on another note, I was contacted by a reporter from the Kennebec Journal who had some questions about progress that we've made in North Monmouth, and was asking some pointed questions about whether I was aware of any disclosure issues with testing information from Tex Tech. And my answer to him was, no, I'm not aware of anything. My opinion is that so far, I've seen Tex Tech trying to do the right thing in terms of giving people information to protect themselves in what is clearly a contaminated aquifer. And I'm wondering, actually, I met with the Water Association folks twice in the last couple of weeks. I'm wondering if maybe at our next meeting, we could just get an update on how it's going with the Water Association. They've been doing some fundraising. They've got a number of applications for grants and such. And so we might, if there's room in our next agenda, I'm wondering if maybe we could give them 5 or 10 minutes of time to make a presentation. They've used our funding to hire this grant writer, and we can invite him to make a presentation to us. And at the same time, perhaps, Justin, this would be on your to-do list. We could invite Tex Tech to listen in or to attend the meeting. And perhaps we'll know more about what's being discussed about testing data. Last I heard about water testing, the Department of Environmental Protection, Maine Department of Environmental Protection, was completely satisfied with their level of compliance and transparency. I don't know if that has changed, but that's where we stood a few months ago when we had a conversation with them.
I just had a follow-up from the last meeting. Where were we with getting the building permits changed so that it doesn't have the wording on there about the code enforcement officer, plus it had a previous code enforcement officer's name on the building.
Okay,
permits.
I didn't know about that part, but the
When I read them through, because I opened them up to read them and figure out what they did say.
Andy and I did have a conversation, and it's kind of roped in a few issues from the planning board too, from Steve. We have to modify some of the, not only because the solar ordinance just changed, we have to update the code, change the date. So
Yeah.
there's a list of things
Yeah.
to do, but I will, you have a list, and Andy and I talked about it. We also updated we realized that this is just an aside, but there's a few forms that we've been kind of working towards. The permit that you receive to remove a mobile home from town didn't have any notice. There was no process in the notice to let the code officer know. So the code officer is possible to issue a permit to put a new mobile home on a site that had one before without them making sure the taxes were all paid on the old one. So we're working on that form too, just so you know, to make sure that the tax collector, me, or the people out front in the office and the code officer are aware that you have to, pay the taxes on the old one before you remove it. And then when you put the new one in, you need a building permit. We also know, Andy's also found that there doesn't appear to be a prescribed fee for mobile homes. So when he contacted Steve O'Donnell today to add that, I think he did it today, or he's going to shortly, to put that on his tickler list for the ideas on when they bring the fees forward, to make that clear what the fee is to put in a mobile home, because the standard is, square feet, or if it's something that's not, permanently attached to the ground, is $25. That doesn't sound right. So there needs to be something there that seems more to scale to what it is going. So there are a few issues there, and we're working through these forms, so it wasn't forgotten. I'm not sure. It's not fixed yet, but we're working on a few of these forms to see how we can make them work.
And the last thing following up from before was my question about shrubbery at the monument. So on either side of the soldier monument, I believe that's a burning bush, because I made note of what it is. Burning bushes on either side of the monument are large, and then
Steps.
the steps, the
Yep.
evergreen or yews or whatever, they aren't used, but there's something. Whether or not you found any information or is there any information out there historically, I think if anything, the only thing that was probably put there was the shrub next to Leland and Betty's bench. But I don't have any recollection of those other shrubs being put there by anybody.
I haven't found anything by digging through the, if I will, the path manager files that are in the town office that might have something that's labeled on it. Lori's on vacation this week, so if she's aware of it, I haven't been able to talk to her yet. Sometimes she's like, oh, go look in this
Yeah.
file. So other than that, I haven't been able to do much with that other than look around in Kurt's stuff and some of the other, just to see if I could find something about that, but I'm unaware of anything to do with it at this point.
And then if we wanted to prune the bushes on either side of the soldier, whose purview does that come under? Do you just say?
Public Works takes care of that property, so if the decision is made to cut down whatever, Dan will be told to cut it down and
Okay.
somebody in Public Works will get rid of it.
But if something needed to just be pruned, like, I mean, those bushes next to the monument, next to the soldier, they're beautiful, but I think if they were,
They need to be brought in.
they need to be pruned to have somebody.
Which I think we did some pruning last year at the request of somebody. That
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was Memorial Day parade or whether it was the 4th of July, or whatever, but somebody did request and they went down and shrunk them to some extent, because you couldn't really even walk up couldn't get
Yeah.
up the stairs
Well,
without brushing
Yeah, the
into
ones
them.
on the stairs need to go because they look not great. And like you said, they're gonna damage the granite. But the ones on either side of the actual soldier, that's burning bush,
Right.
those I think could just be.
We can have Public Works do it, or we could hire somebody that actually knows
Knows
what they're doing.
That would be my request, is that we.
Just when we're dealing with
Yeah.
bushes, right, like they're not,
Chainsaw.
The chain, you know,
We can cut them down, I mean, that's not gonna be an issue, it's just you want them to look,
want them to
half
be
decent.
different. Yeah,
so we may wanna get somebody that knows something about plants.
exactly.
I like prune change up.
Yeah.
What about Tim Burnham? Is if he's,
Or-
He does all the stuff that comes to
Yeah.
Hall, so.
yeah.
Or I can call Marco.
Or
Yeah,
Marco,
you know, I
exactly.
can-
And.
So local farmer have any idea?
I think the Conservation Commission would like to point out that burning bush is actually. an
Exactly, invasive
species.
species.
Delegation and sale in the state of Maine.
It is now, but I-
We would love to see them replaced with something actually native to the state.
Yeah.
Instead of encouraging
Where are they native to?
somewhere in Asia. I believe.
Yeah, they're
But
definitely
they're-
not sold here anymore, but they were a big deal at one point in time. Everybody.
They're
bought
there. If they're still illegal, I'd be buying them, but they're not legal.
because they're, the color they give in the fall, and that type of.
Isn't that also the case with like the red maple? You can't buy those anymore.
Norway, man.
Norway.
Norway, man.
Norway, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, those are Highlanders.
Yeah.
Weren't those the ones the Lions Club sold?
You know, David,
But that was back in the 70s, because everybody planted them.
that's
So,
why David Hanley was always very gracious for offering good
Oh, yeah.
advice. He does that with all our cemetery property, and he's got a doctorate in that stuff. So
yeah,
If anybody's concerned and you're gonna put a layman with a bush cutter in the
Yeah.
hand, maybe you wanna talk to David first, or
What's his name?
David Handley.
Handley?
He's up at the University of Maine on top of the hill.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
or,
And
Yeah, okay.
He's very community minded. He's one of the cemetery trustees and all around nice person.
and if we did want to, do the right thing and remove those bushes because they are invasive, have a discussion with him about how hard they would be to remove the burning bush and what might be a better option there.
He'd have all that on the tip of his tongue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to,
there's quite a few native shrubs that have just as good color in the
Yes.
fall in
Oh,
addition
yeah.
to flowers in the spring and berries in the
Mhm.
summer, so.
Yeah.
Black
Yeah.
chokeberry is one that he's quite familiar with.
Yeah.
But the Conservation Commission would be happy to share information on that too.
And we need stuff for the constant,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly. Yep. All right, so those are just my follow-ups from the last meeting.
Sure, we can get it out with that new mini excavator. That'll get that out. Everybody would like to have one of those when they're digging the brush out of their front yard. They're not
We
that,
could have just used the truck pull from the fair.
yeah, rip the rear end. Yeah, it's just like not on your regular car, you rip the rear axle in it.
So, nothing else for the select board? On to public comment? You,
I would just add to you're talking about the transfer station, I would definitely advocate and encourage, one stop, it's a shopping, dumping. Not trying to get people to go somewhere else, if you have to pay a fee, you have to pay a fee. Some people would be, especially elderly, if they didn't have things, certain items, it would be difficult for them to look around. Nice to be able to have them pull in any of the citizens and be able to, and I know people don't like to pay additional monies, but if it's decreed that that's what's necessary to be successful and have it, revenue wise, then that's what we need to do. The common sense rules, the rules, hopefully. So I would encourage not trying to outsource and get rid of it, just what's it gonna cost us? We're gonna pay this much more for a tire or shingles or whatever it is.
That's the thing, you pay it at the transfer station individually, or you pay it as a group in your taxes, so.
However
It's-
that works.
Yeah, it's gotta come from one spot or the other.
One of,
For sure.
one of the problems is instituting this new thing where we don't have any free items. We kind of pledge not to raise the fees for a period of time moving forward. Because there was no more free items, so we've got that hanging behind us too, that, you know,
We're gonna have to understand.
I don't remember what the period was, if it was 1 year or 3 years or. Yeah,
I do have to say, I'll mention it as a possibility and put it in that time parenthesis. I was contacted by a friend of mine who's on the select board in Litchfield. And the town of Litchfield is not a one-stop shop. So there are a lot of things they don't accept. And they're facing significant cost increases as well. They have a very small transfer station over in Litchfield. And this friend, we had this conversation about the potential for partnering with Litchfield, much in the same way we do with the town of Wales. Possibility of spreading the overhead cost of a transfer station over more people. And he was surprised that we're still having the problem of chasing out of town residents away from free riding at the Monmouth transfer station. So we're exploring the potential. They are not a member of MWAC, so they get no discount on their disposal through MWAC. They pay commercial rates when they get rid of bulky items. And that actually for them was enticing, an interesting possibility, because they might save a little bit if they're using MWAC to get rid of their household trash. They don't even accept household trash. They have commercial haulers who pick up. Every person who wants a commercial hauler has to pay 25 or 40 bucks a month to have someone stop by their house and pick up household trash, right? They'll do recycling and such, and bulky and tires, but not household trash. So I don't know. It's an idea. If we're able to regionalize some of our waste disposal, much in the same way we do with residents of Wales, maybe an additional community, perhaps there's going to be potential for savings there for the town of Monmouth. Might be worth exploring. I know that Justin has sent a note to their town manager asking for some additional data so that we can kind of come up with a model to see how that might work and whether it would, what the financial ramification might be. But I agree, Hugh. I think a one-stop shop,
Especially for the elderly.
it's worked well for us. Perhaps we need to recalibrate based on what we're looking at for unexpected disposal costs. And I know that when we got rid of the free stuff, we said, we're gonna freeze this for 3 years. That was prior to 8 to 10% inflation. And anything that uses diesel is much more expensive. Simply because of the transportation cost. So we may have to
And
revisit
that
that
increase from $40 to $85.
Exactly.
disposal. Yeah, yeah. tip
And,
increase.
That's something we couldn't have predicted when we made, when we
that come out.
made the
We decided to do something.
proclamation.
We decided to do something like, you gotta pay you per bag, each bag you throw in there, you gotta pay, the. Can we have to go through a big process, right?
I think we need an ordinance to do that. I don't think, I have to look at what the solid waste ordinance says. I can't remember if you're allowed to. I think that would probably be beyond what it says. It probably says that the fees can be set by the board, but I'm not sure. I have to look into that for you, Doug. I don't know exactly what the current ordinance says, but if I looked into it, I could see whether you have the authority to do that or whether it would need the townspeople to vote on it.
I think we've done it before.
You may know better than me, so yeah. It's,
I think I remember doing it before, but
I'll have that for you when we come to you with the problem. I'll make sure I have a few options for the solution.
Yeah.
yeah, you.
Kristen, she mentioned about Cumston Park and over by the town garage. Serving on the trustees for several years, yeah, and also as the Schoolville Club, we discovered who holds control of the property. We have a lease with you folks on the side where our building is, 25 years. I was always under the explanation given to me that there's kind of a line drawn right behind the town garage, and that's where the auspices of the Cumston Park begins. Now, if I'm wrong, but that's the way we always operated, and in the end, I think it's kind of doesn't really matter. I think Kristen's idea of having a group meeting and all the players being there is important, but probably would be a good idea to actually know who is for sure under the auspices of town garage area as it comes to park. And I don't think they're the same, even though at the fair looks synonymous, but it really isn't, I don't believe, on the books.
Yeah.
Just so you're aware of that.
Yeah. Well, I learn every day about Cumston Park because we all know what's going on at Cumston Hall, but Cumston Park is just this other little extra thing that we oversee, but it's actually a really valuable little piece of real estate that's underutilized, I believe, but I think that knowing where the lines are for that, and it's got to be somewhere historically written down where that is. I don't know.
Well, it goes way back, there was an orchard way over by the back where the high school was.
Yes.
Or the
Yeah.
Parkman, but Dr. Cumston,
Cumston.
it's all in the document, so there is a document that talks about.
And I bet Linda probably knows.
Yeah.
Linda's got that
You can ask her.
historic knowledge.
There's a directive that tells you exactly.
Okay, yeah. And
But it would seem to me, of course, that for those 4 days, that Public Works could, I mean, could do something to make sure that the men are safe with maybe barriers, so.
I agree, so I'm sure we saw something simple.
Yeah, it wouldn't, I don't think, I don't say anything being complicated about it or a
No,
big deal.
I just want to make sure that Kristen brought it up, that she wears, there's a line in the sand that you wear both hats, so we actually you control both sides. So,
And it's really only 2 of the 4 days because they're only
Yeah.
open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They don't work.
Right.
yeah,
And it could be as simple as just getting one more attendant down there to watch traffic flow, and if they see something, hey, they're backing out, can you hold up for a minute? Person for 2 days could resolve the whole issue and make it safe.
I think
So it's a.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
communication and what you're saying is
So.
Yeah,
take care of it all.
I think that's important.
We're here to see if we're gonna discuss some code violations. Is that something we're gonna discuss tonight?
There isn't anything on the item that was on the agenda to discuss the issue that you're talking about. Is,
We were told that it was gonna be discussed and
yep, understand. It was going to be the executive session item that's on the agenda, but our legal counsel can't be here tonight. So I'm gonna, when we get to it, I was gonna ask the chair to pass on that item. So at this point, unless the board wants to take something up under public comment, it's completely up to them, but there is not an agenda item to discuss what you were here about.
do you have any new information on the violation and going forward with a fine to the parties that are in
With
violation?
in regards to a fine, no. There is, our attorney has had conversations with their attorney over the past week or two, or whenever, you were here at their last meeting, right?
Yeah, that was.
I just can't remember if it was the last one or the one.
The one before, it was an hour ago.
Okay,
You know, my thing is how much money is the town spending on lawyers? Going back and forth with his lawyers, you know, how are you gonna recoup some of that money? I mean, he's in violation. So it just, I don't understand why the taxpayers have to pay.
well, we're not completely sure about all of the facts. That's the problem. So if we were to start fining, not knowing the facts and we lose, we then have to pay all that back to his attorney, plus fees and interest and all of our liability for wasting his time.
Yeah.
So we have to be sure that we know what we're talking about. And right now, he has gone around and collected affidavits, which from different people that have lived down there since the 1970s, saying that there's been 2 dogs there.
Never been 2 dogs there.
So,
That's a complete farce.
but and I'm not gonna argue with about it here tonight, I'm just telling you, but there are things that are happening back and forth, and that's why
Yeah, I hear you.
this really isn't the forum to have this conversation,
No, I
because
get you.
these people don't know all of the facts about everything that's going on, because
Discussing this tonight, that's all. So, okay.
right, no, I completely understand why you're here, but the idea was that they were gonna be briefed by the attorney tonight. But the attorney can't be here until their second meeting in July. He's double booked for their July 12th meeting.
Okay.
So the earliest that he can meet them is that. There are things happening. I mean, I know that's not satisfactory to you, but there are conversations going back and forth between, we're not just sitting around on our hands. We're trying to resolve it, but it's more complicated than I think.
Yeah.
Than everybody kind of wants to admit at this. Everybody's got their own set of facts. Everybody's hiring their own experts and lawyers. So it's just kind of every 3 or 4 days, there's something new that crops up that then we have to get, you know, is this true or not? And, you know, where are the pins? You know, just like I've said before to you. I mean, you know what I'm going to say to you, so I'm not going to keep repeating myself. but-
Is,
All right, well, I'll go home and wait to hear from you guys.
will we move the item 9 into July 12th?
He can't be here on the 12th. He's double booked. So it would be the second 26th. Is that what it's 20? I always want to say the 28th, but I think it's the 20th. Doug said the 26th. That's the earliest that he can come. His 12th on the 12th, his item that he has on the 12th that he's double booked for, he readily admits that it may disappear. He thinks they're going to settle. I don't know who he's talking to or what town he's dealing with or what his issue is, but he says that one may go away. And if it does, he may be able to be here on the 12th, but right now he can't say that because he's already committed the 12th to a different community.
But it won't be tonight.
Correct.
All right. You.
Thank you.
Feel free to give me a call next week. I'm happy to talk you through what I know. It's just that they just don't know all the facts and it's not, you know, it's not fair to them to be put in the middle of it. Yep, you're welcome.
Any other public comment? On to consider a bequest of the 103 100 Tamarack Road to the people of Monmouth.
Up there, or you can sit wherever you're comfortable.
Wherever. My name is Martin Murphy, minister to some, choice expletive to others. My purpose for being here is to announce my intention to bequeath my 28 acres on 103 Tamarack. I have only one copy of this, but looks like it was printed on a potato, but that's just to give you an idea what it looks like.
Just trying to match it up with where. Is it this piece right here?
It's on the other side of the stream.
It's on the other side of the stream, so.
From the
when you
road.
go down
Oh, it's this
Tamarack-
piece right
Yep,
here.
right
It's
there.
this piece, okay.
Yep.
I was
Go all the
trying
way
to
down,
figure
and,
it out.
and then there's a path that goes.
Yeah, there's a 20-foot wide right of way that I own that goes down to the water, then it's 100 feet across the water. And then it's 28 acres, I think it's surrounded on 3 sides by water, and then the bird sanctuary is in the back of it.
Oh, yeah.
So my reason leaving it to the town is I wanted to give something back, but at the same time, it doesn't come without some conditions. Nothing is to be built out there. It's a place for people to go, to hunt, to fish, to trail their animals that they have, donkeys, horses, whatever. Someplace where generations can go, and this, I know it's gonna come. I'm originally from New Jersey. Sussex, New Jersey is the exact shape of Maine, 166 the size. So I know it's coming. Pretty soon, you're gonna see wind turbines hovering like tombstones over dead eagles. You're going to see solar panels blinding astronauts. And on days like this, they'll be doing nothing. Meanwhile, a single tree can easily consume hundreds of tons of carbon by itself. So I know it's coming. You're gonna be swimming in concrete. You're gonna be learning new terms like McMansion. They're balsa wood constructions wrapped in Tyvek, plastic stone facades, and fiberglass lines parked in the driveway with an aluminum gate painted to look gold. You're gonna see things like walls popping up. And when I was in Sussex, I heard a guy similar to myself doing the same nonsense that you're hearing now. Fine. Here, let me tell you something. I'm not an environment guy, I'm not a big eco guy, but I'm telling you from my own experience what's coming. You're 1980s New Jersey, and it's coming. 30 years from now, maybe sooner, maybe 20 years from now, you're gonna be amazed. You're gonna see mountains. We had rolling hills and mountains erased, quarries come in. You ever see a mountain disappear? I have. It's just a pile of rubble. And then shopping malls come in, and eventually because it all starts, the infrastructure, it's all about, oh, we're helping you, we're gonna, it starts with the infrastructure, then the infrastructure brings in the businesses need more infrastructure, more businesses, and then before you know it, you've overbuilt and you've got nothing left. There's gonna be no trees. I'm telling you that right now. It's only 28 acres, but at least I could die knowing that there's a little 28-acre island now somewhere where someone could take their kid and say, that's a tree. So, like I said, it's got conditions on it. Until I'm dead, I'm still in charge of it. And if anyone wants to use it now, they're more than welcome. I have 3 neighbors hunting out there. They've got tree stands. They were concerned when I first bought the property. What's good? You know what you're doing. You know, I want people to use it. I want people to enjoy the outside. So if anyone wants to use my property, how about if the town wants to use it for a purpose, my only request is don't destroy the environment. You know, that's my only thing. Got any ideas? If you want to have functions and events out there, I mean, it's an island. You got a good boat out there, but anyone that wants to use it, have at it. So, but in the meantime, I'm still in charge.
Well,
I think I am, on the record talking.
Sir, what are you thinking of doing? Doing a will and
Yeah, I would like
divide
to,
the property to the
I
town?
would like to have originally I was just gonna. Just go to my attorney, just throw it in my will and just have it dumped on the town, but then a number of people have brought it up that maybe I should probably approach the town with this first. Cause while it sounds like a great idea, I don't know, maybe the town might not like it. So I said, all right, let me approach the town with it. Let me go through my reasons for it and the conditions on it. Like I said, I just don't want it to be developed. I don't want it to breathe it and then. The town turns around and next thing you know, there's a developer with McMansions and condos and whatnot.
The problem is you can change your will at any time,
Yeah.
and that you're competent. So you could draw up a will that says, I devise this property to the town to the inhabitants of the town of Monmouth. And if they don't accept it, then I leave it to Joe Blow or
Yeah.
something else. So it doesn't seem like it's a ripe issue for us to rule on right now. This Kennebec Land Trust is another. Yeah, if you've looked into that.
Small Maine Woodlot owned as well. They actually pay more taxes than the back of town.
I'm familiar with that property because at some point there was a title search done and there was a question as to whether that right of way, that one attorney said that 20-foot wide path. You can't use Tamarack Lane. That was his opinion. That it was not part of the subdivision.
I have it in my deed, I own it.
I know what it says.
Yeah.
So in any event, it doesn't seem like something we can act on right now.
Well-
If you do it in the will and we don't accept it, then you should have an alternate. You name, if the town doesn't accept it, then I leave it to so-and-so.
Okay, like a trust.
I devise it to, yeah, whatever. That's
Did the conservation committee have something they wanted to say?
Part of the reason we wanted to be here was to find out some of the details behind what your wishes are around it. If it was something you're going to grant to the town now, sound like you're gonna put it in your will.
It will be in the will. Because I wanna, while I'm alive, I can't control when I'm dead, but when I'm alive, I can. Make sure that it stays pristine.
There are options around open space, which is something that we're focusing on these days, given its proximity to Woodbury Sanctuary. You might reach out to them. That might be an option as an addition to or an option to the town of Monmouth. There's Kennebec Land Trust. The development rights too.
The only thing, like I said, is I don't want it to be developed, and I do want people to have access to it.
Correct.
And I want people to be able to enjoy it, because like I said, I'm 38 years ahead of you, so I know what your future is.
Well, it's a generous offer, but I don't think we can act on it right now. If you were to make the grant right away, we could. If you want to hold on to it and dispose of it by devise in your will, it's really not ripe for us to act on.
It would be up to that select board at the time to decide whether or not to accept the offer.
Okay, so this is something I can just throw in my will for now, or do whatever I want with, and don't just, the town doesn't worry about it at the time.
He's the lawyer in the room, but that would be my understanding.
What is your question?
Oh, I'm sorry, so basically, I could put it in my will, and if the town they rejected it, I mean, they just worry about it at the time.
Yes,
Okay,
after you passed, and your will would say, I leave 103 Tamarack to the inhabitants of the town of Monmouth, and if they don't accept it, then I leave it to so-and-so.
do an alternate. Okay.
Who could be like they were saying, the birds are, Joel was saying. The bird sanctuary is into it, trust, and like.
A lot of things can be much.
I mean, bird sanctuary is that, I do want people to be able to hunt, fish and camp on it.
Um,
And the sanctuary would not allow that.
That's
So
true.
then maybe it's the Kennebec Land Trust.
Yeah.
Which does have properties where there are deed restrictions. They hold, the development rights, and enforce the deed restrictions as part of their mission. And then they also allow a variety of uses. Some of the properties they have no public access, but deed restrictions. Other properties that they have public access and snowmobile trails and hunting and fishing and all sorts of,
My only concern is that I would like the future to have a place to go when you're swimming in concrete.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to like, one of the land trust farms,
Yeah.
if they're willing to take it as part of their portfolio, they would put deed restrictions on it. And the advantage to that is it would move you to, I mean, not that you pay a lot of taxes, but if you gave one of those land trust deed restrictions under a permanently protected status or something like that, you could get that tax burden cut by almost 90%. So that's something for you to think about too. I mean, I'm not saying these are, you don't have a $10,000 tax bill or anything, but you could.
It's like negligible.
Right, exactly, but I'm just saying, but you could, if you gave it to somebody like that, that would change that. That tax that, and then that land trust would hold those restrictions and they would enforce them basically on your behalf when you're gone too, so. If somebody wanted to buy it, they would say, no, we have deed restrictions on it, basically makes it worthless to develop because they can't do anything, those land trusts, that's not in their
Yeah.
portfolio, they don't want stuff developed, so like they're gonna be the ones that are gonna go to court and force something if some third party were to get a hold of it. Basically makes it useless to anybody else,
Yeah.
other than for what you have an agreement with them for. That's the way to legally force what you want, is to let one of those land trusts have a deed
Do we know
restriction.
like how I would get in contact with these land trusts?
Have a phone, all you can do is ask.
Yeah.
Or you can also, you can reach out to them on the Conservation Commission and we can put you in touch with. any of that.
That's what they do too, that's their goal, is they're trying to do as much of that as possible.
We want to talk to landowners, just like, it's a really, thank you for thinking about, the future residents of Monmouth, and that's a really high value property for conservation purposes. It's a,
All right, so
riparian forest.
I get your number then.
Yeah, I can give you, our email address, or a number, phone number, either way.
Okay,
So
or I'll give you mine, but mine's, it's Reddit, Mark Murphy, thank you, Wes.
I'll write that down for you.
Do we,
Yeah, I think it's the big comment, we mentioned Kennebec Land Trust, which I work very closely with in a number of different areas. But I'd also encourage small Wayne Woodlawn owners, outside the door here, that has control of that. Long-standing citizen left that to them, and all his directives and wishes are followed to the letter. I think the gentleman we still talk with over there is Bill Williams. I know Teresa Kirshner is Kennebec Land Trust, speak for all the time. But we have to work with, Woodlawn owners a lot. They've actually now incorporated how they handle things through the big long title, but it's the Office of Public Recreation, whatever it's called there in Augusta.
Oh, yeah.
They keep changing their name,
Yeah.
like those guys, Public Recreation. They actually handle it for small, so you talk to them. I think you'd have to talk to Joe Higgins. But small Woodlawn owners, also one thing that I noted about them is they work the lands, they actually sometimes pay a sort of tax back where the other folks at KLT do not so much. So I would advise you to contact both of those trusts. See which one you like,
Wall Main.
small Wayne Woodlawn owner, and see which one you prefer, their term. You might find one over the other, and I'm not sure which one you like better.
Yeah.
in the meantime, there's been an initiative in Monmouth that actually started by a survey that happened last year among the residents to develop trail systems in Monmouth.
I think I know who that was, Sarah.
Could very well be, but if in the meantime, you're interested in inviting the public to this particular property.
Yeah, I'm already in contact with one of the people that are organizing the trails. So I let them know, the problem is getting the animals out there, because like I said, it is basically an island. And I don't think the bird sanctuary allows them to trail animals through the bird sanctuary.
Right, so if you're, and if there's some issue with, either the right of way off of Tamarack or crossing the, crossing the Jock Stream there, then maybe it's the bird sanctuary that you might think about, and some of their conditions might have to apply if they're the only reasonable, access. But nonetheless, talking to these folks, the Conservation Commission folks, about different possibilities of connecting to the bird sanctuary in the meantime. I think there'd be a big demand for that. And by the way, I think we just, well, we're not quite done with the approval process, but we did at least, the voters did at least approve some language changes to our economic development priorities to include trail building as one possibility. So although if you're landlocked and can only deal with the bird sanctuary, then you may have to go by their rules about what the use of the trail might be, but there may be some potential for offsetting of costs of trail building if the public it may have to be a permanent situation, but if the public is welcome on that property, then perhaps there could be some collaboration that you could do with the town, and that we, I don't know, in a year's time might actually have a budget, a very small one, for helping offset some costs.
I'd be interested in collaboration, yeah.
So, and that would be something that we could do a lot sooner than whenever it is your will it gets executed. That could be like, in the next year. We could actually potentially work together. And that would be under the supervision of this board. Tentatively, I think we said, I don't know, I mean, this is not a hard number, but when we put together the economic development numbers for our funds available, it was a 5-figure amount that for dedicated to trail building across town.
How about a bridge across that stream?
I looked into a bridge. The problem is they can't get the footers to the other side. I imagine if I had enough money, enough money would make it possible, but it's like 100 foot, it's 100 feet to the other side. It's just not possible to get the footers to the other side. And then even if you could get the footers, a crane holding that much weight on that spongy ground, I don't see any way that it can, maybe a rope bridge or something. Like a wire bridge, a suspension bridge, it would only be foot traffic, of course, but it's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for your generosity, I think. Yeah, that's very.
And I think there's quite a lot of potential there. And I appreciate your vision.
Well, actually, like a wire bridge, a footbridge, would that fall under the trails? Domains?
Potentially, we'd have to see.
We'd have to see. We're about 3/4 of the way done with getting our economic development language, we call it a tax increment financing process. We're about 3/4 of the way revising the language for it. We have a couple more hoops to jump through, and then it will be final. And then this board would be authorized to expend small amounts of money to help offset costs for the purpose of trail building where there's public access involved.
That's why I want public access.
Yep, and we haven't really devised exactly what the policy, what our ask might be, or whether it's a match type of situation. But there's some potential there. And maybe we can explore that.
We can stay in touch for that and see what we can do.
Yeah.
So mentioned that the Conservation Commission is gonna be having what are we calling it?
Conversation and coffee?
Yeah, that.
Cookies and coffee.
Uh,
Cookies and
the big-
conversation.
Yes, at the beginning of August, it's on my to-do list to send out the email to the interested parties in town around trails. Trying to bring together folks who are interested in trails, be it landowners on trails or folks who are using trails across town, try to get that all rolling to see what's possible. So related to that money that's gonna become available to the town. So maybe I'll add you to that list. If you can make it great. No, we'll keep you.
Here we are.
You got my number there as well.
Yep, great.
As a guy who was born and brought up in New Jersey, I guess I might have foreseen all that, all what you're projecting, down there. My relatives there.
Yeah, like I said, Maine is basically 1980s New Jersey. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that with love and respect. Enjoy it while you can.
And I always felt one reason I wanted to move to Maine is because I couldn't, I wanted to be here because it seemed like it was just stepping back in time. And things are much simpler and more pleasant.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is to consider awarding the Cocknoagan Dam repair.
So I put both bids in your packet. We're recommending that you award this to Chesterfield Associates. It's for $200,000, which is more than what we had estimated. When we went forward, the other bid is $394,000 from Gordon Contracting. Chesterfield is the contractor that did the Woodbury Pond Dam, and Calderwood Engineering is the one that did the engineering on Woodbury Pond Dam. That's how we ended up here. They're very comfortable with that contractor, and they apparently did a very good job over in Woodbury, actually for less than what they bid it out for in the end, because they modified the scope as they got into the work. What this will require, though, is because this bid is more than we expected. There will not be enough money in this bond that was approved at the town vote fix Beaver Brook. So what we would have is we'd have enough money to probably buy the culvert and stuff, so we don't get stuck like we are this year where we can't buy the equipment, but we'd need further either money in the budget or a bonding question or whatever, however it is you wanted to fund it. In the next budget, we would need to ask for more money to actually do the repair over there. That being said, it may not be necessary to ask the Monmouth taxpayers for more money at that point, because if we can get some agreement between Wayne and Leeds about supplying money for that project, we may be able to get enough out of those two in the, however we negotiate that out. We may not have to, but I just wanted you to know that if you approve the 200,000 here, there will not be enough money left in that question to completely fund that project. So we either need money from those two towns, or we need to go back to the Monmouth taxpayers to get it. So I just want you to be fully aware of that.
What's the variance?
So the total question, I can't remember, but I think the estimate on this was somewhere around 120 to 150, and it's 200. So it's
50 to 70,000.
Yeah, somewhere in there. I'm sorry, I don't have that for you.
And the other part of that too is they may negotiate with the abutters to not have to barge the material over there, correct?
Correct,
work off of a barge.
correct. So
So that could possibly, once they negotiate with the abutters,
may decrease the bid. Yeah, so what I do know at this point is Chesterfield is aware of the bid prices, so they're operating right now on an assumption that you're gonna award that to them. It does not put you in any position where you have to, but they already ordered the concrete pieces that they
Yes.
need because of the lag time.
yeah.
So they went ahead and did that as soon as the bid opened, and they told me that. They have already negotiated with a landowner off of North Shore Drive to go through their property.
Yeah.
And to get directly there, so they do not anticipate at this
Have
point that
to
they're gonna
barge.
have to borrow, so that may impact the bid price. This does not have. The way this was bid doesn't necessarily break down what those costs were gonna be for all of that, so there may be some savings in here, there may not, but
Yeah.
but it's probably not gonna be worse than what's on there, just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that will.
You know, Mr. DRC.
No, but I know people that own Chesterfield, so I do know who they are.
So Mr. Dios, if you go all the way down North Shore Drive, his camp is the one on the other side of the dam. On this side of Blue Road, if you will.
Yeah,
And he lives right at the end. He lives in Brunswick, and it's been his family camp, and he's been very cooperative to Public Works to
Yeah.
crossing his property. When the dam inspector was down, he let us cross his lawn too, and we mowed down there's a bunch of bamboo between his
Oh,
property
wow.
and the dam.
Yeah.
And all of that, according to the state dam inspector, all needs to be removed. So when this project is done, it's all gonna get wiped out. It's in the town right away or in the stream right away, but he has apparently already signed an agreement with Chesterfield pending your approval that they can use his property to get there.
well, that's good news. So.
You remember DRC? on Woodside
Yes,
Street?
yes, yeah, I do. Yeah.
His name.
Well, so many people from Lewiston spent summers here. You know, there was a ton of people from Lewiston that summered on Cottonwagon Lake.
That property used to be Philadelphia,
Yes, it was the Philatoses.
and that's really the Pennetfield.
Yes, Yep, the Lynches, which I know really well as well. So,
Camp was right there, you grew up playing right in that spot.
oh, yeah.
Todd Bergeron used to get $1.50 to mow that lawn.
Now you can't buy one of these for that.
No,
For
I-
$2.69. It's
Good with
ridiculous.
that. I make a motion, we accept the Chesterfield bid for the Cottonwagon Dam project.
Second.
Chris has made a motion and has seconded it to award the bid for the Cottonwagon Dam to Chesterfield. All those in favor? On to the warrant number 46. Warrant.
AT Southern Maine, 2010 International Vehicle Repairs, $1,565. Blue Rock Earthworks Materials Transport for the transfer station, $2,564. CGIS Solutions, this is the digital mapping that you all approved out of the ARPA funds. We have a dummy version we're playing with right now. I will share that all with you when next time I'm back in the office. So you can look at it. It's pretty cool. 9,850 copies, etc. This is the town report. $1,957. Criminal Industries demo removal for the transfer station, $6,327. Kiefer Aquatics, stuff for the town beach for the summer, ropes and whistles and all that thing, $1,142. New England Salt Company, sand, salt, and chemicals, $8,468. Northeast Emergency Apparatus LLC, equipment repairs and maintenance, $12,487. Power plan bill, the John Deere loader needed some repairs, $2,011. St. Laurent and Sons Excavation, Compston Hall parking lot, 71,000. That's 71,493, that's what it went to, but State of Maine Bureau of Motor Vehicles, 4,804. Stevens Farm and Greenhouses, this is for the barrels on Main Street, the welcome signs into town and various other things that she does for us every year, $1,600. And WB Mason, various supplies in the town office and elsewhere. Office supplies, paper products, 1,054 for a grand total of $133,793.46.
I make a motion, we approve warrant number 26 for fiscal year 2022-23.
Second that.
So Ken has made a motion, Chris has seconded it, to approve warrant number 26. Or 22, 23, all those in favor? You. This article that was in the paper that you were interviewed for,
Okay, yep.
and budget went up, he said here $530, yeah, $530,000.
Yeah.
Then our RSU budget has gone up about $300,000.
Yep, and then the county went up on top of that. And then the Cobbossee watershed went on top of that.
And that's like 2 mills.
Well, this is where it gets kind of complicated, right? Because Donna is envisioning a 15% across the board factor on the values. So the mill rate will fall. But everybody's property value will increase by 15%. So normally if you did a 15%, if all else stayed the same, and she factored the town up 15%, the mill rate would fall 15%. Because of the expenditures have increased as well, the mill rate's gonna fall, but it's not gonna fall enough to outstrip the value factoring. So it's not 2 mills, it's not gonna look like that, it's actually gonna fall. It's gonna fall from 19.5 to, I'm estimating somewhere between 18.6 and 18.9, but the value of your house is gonna go up. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So the tax bills are gonna go up 11-12%.
Yes, overall, yep.
On average.
With the school, the county, the town, and the
On
water district, yep, with all those together. That's what you're looking at, and like I tried to say in there, you guys stripped everything that you could out of that thing. Right, when it comes to capital, right, you took all the stuff out that you can that you can do something about without, cutting services somewhere. You basically held the line on what we're doing to the best of your ability with inflation, and that's where it came out. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also important to understand that, we've been struggling with retention of town employees, and it's most organizations are these days, because unemployment is very low and people who want employment have a lot of choices. So you have to pay them a fair compensation, pay them well and treat them well in order to keep them. And fortunately, this is what we had in mind when we, as a board, approved the collective bargaining agreements for the police union and the public works. We understood that if we didn't follow or even catch up to the inflationary effect on people's paychecks, they're going to go somewhere else, and work won't get done. Fortunately, we've been able to find people to replace some of the ones that we've lost. Seems to me like it is a big jump. It's a huge jump, 11%. In my mind, we're playing catch up to retain good people in the town, in the municipal workforce of Monmouth. And, to some degree, we're locked in with the contracts that we signed, what was it, a year or 2 years ago?
this will be into the second,
Yeah.
more than the second year, yeah.
So to some degree, we don't have a whole lot of discretion on what those rates are. It's bittersweet.
Yeah, the wages were baked into the cake, so Winthrop And you all knew that we were facing a problem with the police department, big time, when we have gardeners paying, you know, $3-4 more an hour and offering $15,000 signing bonuses, and they're calling our police officers here with blue pins every other week saying, why don't you come work for us? We'll give you 15 grand and $3-4 more an hour.
Mhm.
So if you want to retain these people, we had to do something. And then you layer that on top of what Winthrop did, is they spent money and did a salary survey. They hired a company and they went across and they went through this 2 years ago and they got hit. That was their big budget hit. They added significant salary increases right across the board in the town office, the town manager, all of them, the police department, all of them. So we were sitting over here right next to our next door neighbor, and our police officers were making several dollars less, $4 or $5, I believe. Chief, if he was here, he could tell you less than they were, and they're right down the street. So for us to get there, as you recall, we had to do, you know, we did and we're not even caught up, but you guys made a significant investment in their salaries. We did a 9% on them in year one, and 8% in year two in their contract. So this is the second year of their big lift, and we're still not in the same ballpark that Winthrop is. So now that any one of our officers could just decide tomorrow they want to go over there, and it's, you know, how far do they got to commute to do that, right? And they can make more money. But we've been lucky so far, I think, under Chief Furlan's leadership, is that they like working for him, and they've been happy here. And but now they keep working for him just right next door.
We're gonna tell them, no, we're not accepting officers from Winthrop.
Yeah, exactly. But
We're police chief to quit picking our people up.
yeah. Exactly, but that was just part of it, right? You know, and then Public Works is was kind of in the same deal, and you didn't give them the same deal that we did the police, but they needed an investment too, to keep them even in the ballpark of Winthrop, Garden, all the towns that are around us that have Public Works Department. So this was the bad year when it comes to that. And then when you all approved that, I don't think anybody saw what we were looking at with 8-9% inflation piled on top of that, where culverts are now twice the cost they were 2 years ago. If you can even get them, diesel fuel, salts, you can't even get parts, let alone pay them what you could before. I mean, just everything is just. So really, there's no new initiatives in this, which is the sad part about doing this thing, right? It's like, it's this huge increase and all you're doing is maintaining what you already had, you know, and it's just not ideal, right? If you want to do this, you generally want to be, oh, look, we did something, you know, we did this,
Well,
this great stuff that you're all going to get to use now. And that's just not where we are right now. It's just.
this is, you know, I mean, I think we're working this fiscal year, we're working on basic operations of the town. Like we're just keeping it going. What I would suggest, and I mean, this is why I'm kind of interested to see what the town of Litchfield is thinking about in terms of transfer station. The only way you're going to make some progress at cutting costs and being competitive in this type of environment is to think out of the box. Is to think regionally, is to think, okay, who can we partner with to figure something out? Solve the problem.
When it comes to the demo stuff, I mean, Winthrop has the scale,
Yeah.
so it's very easy. They know exactly how much it costs to get rid of what you're bringing in. And if it got to the point where we, you know, decide we don't want to accept that stuff, and we could talk Winthrop into, it's like, hey, they're gonna pay you to get rid of it. It may be, and then each person is paying for what they're getting rid of.
Sure.
Rather than all of us paying for, you know, more so the demo stuff than, no, I guess it's too expensive.
How much on it? How much on it?
Oh, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars for a scale. Oh, yeah, very
Yeah.
expensive.
And Dan mentioned that when we were talking about it before, back.
You couldn't raise the fees high enough to pay for the scale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What did they afford?
Oh, they've had that for a long
They
time
have,
now.
yeah, when they built the facility, it was built with this, the
Yeah.
scale was part of the project.
Yeah.
Twice the
And I don't know if they got any funding helped to do that
Probably.
project at the time.
When they moved it from the Superfund site over to 202, I'm
Yeah,
sure
they
that
may
they
have gotten
got
some help in paying for it.
something.
A lot cheaper and just threw it in the hole.
Well, you could just dump it and, you know, hand it up a quick light, so, you know.
If our recycling is getting dumped in a hole, why don't we send our recycling to MWAC and make electricity out of it?
The only, my understanding is the only thing that's actually have the value left on the market, they call it totes and jugs, so it's like the Tide bottles.
Mhm.
Cause that kind of plastic, when it melts, it turns into these little beads and they can use it for all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
Everything else had like all those restaurant containers and stuff that they used to tell you that stuff is all just trash. They're throwing it right in the ground. It has no value at all.
Cause those little beads Rusty Neal takes and extrudes into something else exciting all over again.
Yeah. I don't know.
Green pollen. So, yeah. Crazy. But doesn't it feel good to put your tin cans?
That's the business.
You're doing it right.
Uh,
All right,
So I think you just have to say for real that we're moving the executive session.
Thank you for keeping
Thanks,
us
you.
honest.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Good night.
Are we doing that? No. So, the executive session will be postponed. So we have our attorney. And who is the attorney?
Natalie Burns is our corporation counsel, but the guy that's dealing with the dock issue, his name is Ben. Yeah,
And
he's a more junior person there, but he deals with a lot of their shoreline zone stuff. Ben McCall, I think is his name.
I understand that they just sold the place in question for 800,000.
Yeah, the people that were here, their house is under contract right now. They listed it like last Monday and it's already under contract.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of the issue may just go away here in a month,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Let's start all over again with new people.
Right, right, exactly. It's the same issue, it may be a different owner, that's all.
But they bought from, who did they buy from?
They bought it from, I would,
Okay, LeMay. And
Yeah.
LeMay put the restriction on it that he had the
had an
right
easement,
to
correct.
put a dock down.
Yeah, he sold it to these people.
And they accepted that deed.
Correct.
Hmm. Okay, I won't prejudice about
make a
it.
motion, we adjourn, turn off the camera.
It's okay. Mark,
Made a motion.
Ken,
Ken made a motion.
And I seconded it.
and Mark seconded.
A motion to.
And-
adjourn. Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.